I built $1 million gaming studio while my wife was busy becoming a spiritual influencer. But when she said plenty of wellness gurus want me, I didn't fight. I walked away and watched her perfect Instagram life crumble through my success. Now she's back, but I got a different game to play. They say hindsight is 20/20, and man, looking back now, I can see all the red flags I missed. But when you're in love, you're wearing rose-colored glasses, right? And those red flags? They just look like regular flags. I'm sharing this story not because I want sympathy, but because maybe someone out there can learn from my experience and avoid the heartache I went through. I'm Jake, 32, and I run an indie game development studio in Austin. Gaming has been my passion since I was a kid, and turning that passion into a career was my dream. I met Sarah at a local tech meetup 5 years ago. She was teaching yoga at the time, and her energy just lit up the room. You know that feeling when you meet someone and everything else just fades into the background? That's what it was like. We clicked instantly. She was fascinated by my work in game development, and I was drawn to her spiritual approach to life. She just gotten her yoga teaching certification and had such big dreams about helping people find peace and balance in their lives. It felt like we complemented each other perfectly, my technical mindset and her spiritual outlook. The first 2 years were like something out of a movie. We'd spend weekends where I'd show her the games I was working on, and she'd teach me meditation techniques. We'd have these deep conversations about life, purpose, and dreams that would last until sunrise. When I was struggling with my first major game release, she was my rock. When she was nervous about leading her first big yoga workshop, I was there in the front row, cheering her on. We got married in a small ceremony in my parents' backyard. It wasn't fancy, but it was us. Sarah said she loved that we could be happy with the simple things. We had plans, big ones. I was working on expanding my studio, and she was building her yoga clientele. We talked about maybe combining our passions someday, creating wellness games or meditation apps. Everything seemed perfect, but you know what they say about things that seem too good to be true. I was putting in crazy hours trying to get my studio off the ground. Game development is brutal. Between deadlines, investor meetings, and managing a growing team, I was stretched thin. But I always made time for Sarah. Always. Date nights were sacred, even if I had to pull an all-nighter afterward to catch up on work. I'd surprise her with little things, her favorite tea, new yoga props, or just random "I love you" texts throughout the day. Looking back, I realized the changes started subtly. It was right around the time she started getting more into social media. At first, it was just posting about her yoga classes, which made sense for her business. But then it became something else entirely. The woman who once loved our simple life started becoming obsessed with creating the perfect image online. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would test everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and myself. But that's the thing about life-changing moments. They rarely announce themselves. They creep up on you, disguised as ordinary days, until one day you wake up and realize nothing will ever be the same. The success of our first major game release changed everything. After 2 years of grinding, sleepless nights, and endless debugging sessions, we finally launched Ethereal Dreams, an indie game that caught the attention of major gaming platforms. The reviews were amazing, and suddenly my little studio wasn't so little anymore. We were making waves in the Austin gaming scene, and I was over the moon. I couldn't wait to celebrate with Sarah. She had been there through the tough times, and this victory felt like ours, not just mine. I planned a special dinner at home. Her favorite vegan restaurant's takeout, organic wine, the works. But when I called to tell her the news, her response was different. "That's great, babe," she said, but her voice was distant. "Listen, I can't talk right now. I'm in the middle of recording content for my wellness channel." This was the first time I'd heard about a wellness channel. That evening, instead of our celebration dinner, I found myself eating alone while scrolling through Sarah's new Instagram page. In just a few months, she had transformed her yoga teaching profile into a full-blown wellness influencer account. The woman in those perfectly curated photos, with her designer yoga wear and carefully arranged smoothie bowls, seemed different from the Sarah I knew, the one who used to teach donation-based classes at the community center. Don't get me wrong, I was all for her growing her business. Heck, I even helped her set up her first website and taught her about SEO. But something felt off. The Sarah who once preached about finding inner peace was now obsessing over follower counts and engagement rates. I try to be supportive. When she wanted to convert our spare room into a content creation studio, I spent a weekend setting up professional lighting and buying the best camera equipment. When she talked about attending a wellness influencer retreat in Bali, I didn't even blink at the price tag. After all, she had supported my dreams. It was only fair I supported hers. But while my studio was growing, with each success bringing us closer to our shared dreams, Sarah seemed to be drifting into a different world entirely. Her yoga classes became less about helping people find balance and more about getting the perfect shot for Instagram. Our deep conversations about life and purpose were replaced by discussions about brand deals and sponsorship opportunities. One night, after a particularly successful game launch party, I came home to find Sarah still awake, bathed in the blue light of her phone. "Honey, you won't believe the numbers we hit today," I started excitedly. Without looking up, she replied, "That's nice. But did you see my latest reel? It's going viral." The worst part? I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something bigger, something that would test our relationship in ways I never imagined. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there, like debug warnings in my code that I chose to ignore. Sarah's transformation from dedicated yoga teacher to wannabe wellness celebrity wasn't just about career growth anymore. It was changing who she was at her core. Remember that spare room we turned into her content studio? It became her sanctuary, but not in the peaceful way her yoga room used to be. She'd spend hours there, recording and re-recording the same video until it was perfect. One day, I brought her lunch, a homemade smoothie bowl, just like she used to make for us. She barely looked up from her phone. "Can't eat that," she said, still scrolling. "It doesn't match my aesthetic." And I already promised my followers I'd review that new organic meal delivery service. That hit me like a ton of bricks. This was the same woman who used to say that food was about nourishment and love, not appearances. Now she was turning down something I made with care because it wouldn't look good on camera. The real wake-up call came during what should have been a special moment for us. My studio had just won an indie game award, and I was giving a speech at the ceremony. Sarah was there, but she wasn't really there. Throughout my entire speech, she was on her phone, occasionally holding it up to record bits for her social media. Later, she posted a story about being a proud game dev wife, complete with carefully chosen filters and hashtags, but she couldn't even tell me what I'd said in my speech. Our conversations became surface level. Instead of sharing fears, dreams, and ideas like we used to, she'd talk about her follower count, engagement rates, and brand collaborations. When I tried to discuss the creative challenges of my new game project, she'd cut me off to show me her latest sponsorship deal. "Look, honey," she said one evening, barely containing her excitement. "This wellness tea company wants to pay me $5,000 for one post. Can you believe it? And they're sending me to their retreat in Sedona next month." "But next month is our anniversary," I reminded her. "We've been planning a quiet weekend getaway for months." She rolled her eyes. "Come on, Jake. This is business. We can celebrate when I get back. Besides, think of the exposure. Maybe I can even mention your games in my wellness journey story." That's when it hit me. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just another potential content angle. The woman who once said she loved our simple life was now chasing a completely different dream, and I was becoming a supporting character in her carefully curated social media narrative. I wasn't ready to give up on us. Call me naive, but I believe that somewhere beneath all those Instagram filters and carefully crafted captions, my Sarah was still there. The woman who used to say that true peace comes from within, not from external validation. So, I did what any desperate man in love would do. I tried harder. First, I upgraded her entire content creation setup. Top-of-the-line cameras, professional lighting equipment, even a green screen for those special effects she wanted to try. The smile on her face when she saw it all gave me hope. "This is amazing, Jake. My content quality is going to be insane." For a moment, I saw a glimpse of her old enthusiasm. I started leaving little surprises in her studio. Her favorite organic matcha lattes, new yoga props from that expensive brand she loved, inspirational books she'd mentioned wanting to read. I even hired a professional cleaner for her studio space, so she could focus entirely on her content. The biggest gesture? I reached out to some gaming industry contacts who had connections in the wellness world. pulled some strings, called in favors, and managed to get her invited to an exclusive wellness influencer summit in Los Angeles. Cost me a small fortune, but seeing her eyes light up made it seem worth it. Oh my God, Jake, do you know who's going to be there? She actually put down her phone for this conversation. This could be huge for my brand. Not for us, for her brand. But I kept going. When she mentioned wanting to rebrand her whole image, I spent an entire weekend helping her reorganize her Instagram feed, learning about color schemes and aesthetic consistency. My game developers thought I was crazy when I started asking them about optimal posting times and engagement metrics. I even tried to bridge our worlds. I proposed developing a meditation app together, combining my gaming expertise with her wellness knowledge. We could create something meaningful, I suggested. Help people while building something together. She seemed interested for about 5 minutes. Then her phone buzzed with a notification, and I lost her again. The final push? I bought her that ridiculously expensive meditation cushion she'd been eyeing, the one made by some famous sustainable fashion designer, costing more than my first car. Had it specially delivered to her studio with a handwritten note, to the woman who taught me the value of inner peace. Love, Jake. She posted a photo of it on Instagram before she even read the note. Perfect lighting, carefully arranged props around it, tagged the designer. The caption? Manifesting luxury spirituality. Hashtag blessed, hashtag namaste, hashtag gifted. The note? I found it later, used as a coaster for her green juice. They say there's always a breaking point. That one moment where everything becomes crystal clear. Mine came on a Thursday night, during the launch week of our biggest game yet. I'd been at the office until late, making sure everything was running smoothly with our servers. The game was doing incredibly well, better than we'd ever expected. All I wanted was to share this moment with my wife. Sarah had gone to some wellness influencer networking event. It's crucial for my brand, she'd said, not even acknowledging that this was our biggest launch week ever. I waited up, wanting to celebrate our respective successes together, like we used to. Around 1 a.m., I heard the front door open. The sound of high heels clicking against our hardwood floors was unsteady. Sarah stumbled into our living room, phone still in hand, giggling at something on her screen. The smell of expensive cocktails hit me before she even looked up. Her yoga clothes were replaced by a designer outfit I'd never seen before. "Oh, you're still up," she said, barely focusing on me. "Sarah, it's 1 a.m. You didn't answer any of my texts." I was worried. I tried to keep my voice calm, even though my heart was racing. She waved her hand dismissively. "Chill, Jake. I was networking. Do you know how many followers I gained tonight? This one wellness guru wants to collaborate with me. He has like 1 million followers. That's what this is all about now. Followers?" I could feel years of frustration bubbling up. What happened to helping people find inner peace? What happened to us? She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language, then let out a laugh that made my blood run cold. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You just don't get it, do you? This is the new spiritual awakening. Nobody wants boring old yoga classes anymore. They want lifestyle. They want luxury wellness. They want fake authenticity." I cut in. Her eyes narrowed. "You're just jealous because my followers care more about wellness than your little video games." That stung, but what she said next changed everything. "You know what?" she continued, typing something on her phone. "I don't need this negativity. I don't need you trying to hold me back. Do you know how many wellness entrepreneurs slide into my DMs every day? How many would kill to have me as their partner?" She looked up from her phone, her eyes cold. "I'm a brand now, Jake. I'm an influencer. If you can't support my journey, there are plenty of others who will." I spent that night in my office, surrounded by monitors displaying our game's success statistics. The numbers were fantastic. We were trending on Steam. Player reviews were overwhelmingly positive. Gaming news sites were praising our innovation. By all accounts, I should have been celebrating. Instead, I was making the hardest decision of my life. Morning came, and with it, clarity. I called Mark, a lawyer friend who'd helped us with gaming contracts. His practice also handled divorces, something I deliberately avoided thinking about until now. "You sure about this, Jake?" Mark asked after I explained the situation. "You guys are like the perfect couple." I emphasized. "That's the key word here." I threw myself into paperwork over the next few days. Turned out running a game studio had made me pretty organized. I had all our financial records, property documents, everything needed to make this as smooth as possible. I wasn't interested in a lengthy battle. I just wanted out. Sarah was at another wellness retreat when I had the papers drawn up. Her Instagram story showed her doing sunrise yoga poses on a beach somewhere, captioned with quotes about living your authentic truth. The irony wasn't lost on me. While she was posting about spiritual awakening, I was dividing our assets. I was more than fair, probably too fair, according to Mark. But I didn't care about the money. The studio was doing well, and the game's success meant I could rebuild whatever I lost. I had everything sent to her while she was still at the retreat. Professional, clean, straightforward. No dramatic confrontations. No heated arguments. Just a simple message. I'm setting us both free. Her response came through Instagram, of all places. She'd posted a long story about releasing negative energy and welcoming new chapters. The divorce papers weren't mentioned, but the timing made the subtext clear. The next day, her lawyer reached out. I expected a fight, given how Sarah had been lately. But something surprising happened. She agreed to everything. Maybe she was too busy with her influencer career to care. Or maybe somewhere deep down, she knew this was inevitable. Our marriage ended with the same efficiency I used to debug code. Methodically, systematically, with all loose ends neatly tied up. The only thing I kept from our shared life was Winston, our golden retriever. Sarah had barely noticed him lately anyway, too busy staging perfect shots for her wellness feed to take him on the walks she used to love. The day everything was finalized, I took Winston for a long hike in the hills outside Austin. As I watched him run freely through the trails, I realized something. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. I didn't keep tabs on Sarah after the divorce, but in the age of social media, it's hard not to see someone's highlight reel, especially when they're trying so hard to prove they're living their best life. The first few months of her post-divorce content were exactly what you'd expect. Her Instagram feed became an endless stream of spiritual liberation posts. Photos of her at luxury wellness retreats, collaboration announcements with other influencers, sponsored posts for expensive yoga, wear, and superfood supplements. Each caption more profound than the last about finding herself and embracing her authentic journey. Living my truth. No negative energy allowed. Hashtag divorce said not dead. Hashtag spiritual awakening. Hashtag blessed became her new mantra. She even did a whole series about releasing toxic relationships to embrace abundance. I guess I was the toxic relationship in that narrative. But social media success doesn't always translate to real life. Through mutual friends, I started hearing a different story. The wellness industry was becoming saturated. Younger, more engaged influencers were taking over. Sarah's content, once fresh and exciting, was starting to feel formulaic. Her big wellness guru collaborator? Turned out he was more interested in her follower count than her spiritual journey. After their life-changing retreat series flopped, he moved on to the next trending influencer. The sponsored deals started drying up too. Companies were looking for authenticity, and Sarah's carefully curated perfection wasn't resonating like it used to. Her attempts to pivot, trying everything from crystal healing to sound baths to quantum alignment coaching, came across as desperate rather than inspiring. She tried dating again, jumping into the influencer dating pool. There were plenty of wellness entrepreneurs and spiritual coaches eager to collaborate with her, both professionally and personally. But these relationships followed a pattern. Lots of professionally shot couple content, inspirational captions about twin flames and spiritual partnerships. Then suddenly, radio silence. One by one, these spiritual entrepreneurs moved on, usually to younger, more trending wellness influencers. The authentic connection she claimed to be making turned out to be as superficial as her social media filters. Our old friend Rachel, who still taught at the yoga studio where Sarah started, told me she ran into her at a cafe. She looked lost, Rachel said, like she was performing happiness instead of feeling it. She spent the entire conversation checking her phone, barely making eye contact. When I mentioned how much her old students missed her real yoga classes, she just laughed it off and said she'd transcended traditional teaching. The final irony? The meditation app I'd suggested we create together? Someone else built something similar. It became hugely successful, focusing on genuine mindfulness rather than aesthetic spirituality. Sarah posted a long rant about how they'd stolen her idea, but everyone knew she'd never been interested in actually developing it when I proposed it. The woman who once taught me about finding peace within was now chasing external validation harder than ever. But this time, that validation was getting harder and harder to find. While Sarah was chasing Instagram fame, I focused on rebuilding, not just my life, but myself. The funny thing about heartbreak? It can either break you completely or become the foundation for something stronger. I chose the latter. The studio became my sanctuary, but not in an escapist way. I poured myself into creating games that meant something, that told stories about real human experiences. Our next project after the divorce was a game about finding yourself in the midst of chaos. The irony wasn't lost on me, but it felt authentic in a way that Sarah's carefully curated spirituality never did. The team noticed a change in me. Gone was the distracted boss who was always checking his phone, hoping for a message from his wife. Instead, they got someone fully present, passionate about creating something meaningful. Our creative meetings became more dynamic, more innovative. Ideas flowed freely because I wasn't constantly worrying about rushing home to prevent another argument. I started taking care of myself too, not just physically but mentally. Found a therapist who specialized in helping entrepreneurs maintain work-life balance. Joined a local game developers support group where we discussed not just coding challenges, but life challenges too. It was refreshing to be around people who were genuine about their struggles and successes. The physical changes came naturally after that. I got back into rock climbing, something I'd loved in college but had given up because Sarah said it didn't fit her wellness brand. Started meal prepping actual healthy food, not just photogenic smoothie bowls. Winston and I hit the trails every morning, watching the sunrise without feeling the need to document it for social media. The studio flourished under this new energy. We expanded, but thoughtfully, maintaining our indie spirit while taking on bigger projects. I hired talented developers who'd been overlooked by bigger studios, giving them a chance to shine. We created a workspace that felt like a community, not just a company. Our games started winning awards, not just for technical excellence, but for storytelling and emotional impact. The industry took notice. We were featured in major gaming publications, not for chasing trends, but for setting them. One journalist wrote, "In an industry obsessed with copying success, this studio dares to be original." The best part? Success came from being authentic, not from trying to build a personal brand. I didn't need to post about our achievements. Our games spoke for themselves. We developed a loyal following of players who appreciated our commitment to creating meaningful experiences. I even started mentoring young game developers, sharing not just technical knowledge, but life lessons too. Build something true to yourself, I'd tell them. Success follows authenticity. The advice was as much a reminder to myself as it was guidance for them. The money came too, more than I'd ever imagined. But it wasn't about showing off wealth or creating an image of success. I invested in the studio, in our people, in creating better games. Bought a modest house with a big yard for Winston, started a fund to help indie developers get their start, and set up a scholarship for aspiring game designers from underprivileged backgrounds. Mark, my lawyer friend, stopped by the studio one day. "You know what's funny?" he said, looking around at our thriving workspace. "You've become more successful by being yourself than you ever were trying to keep up with Sarah's influencer lifestyle." He was right. The guy who used to measure his worth by his wife's Instagram engagement was gone. In his place was someone who found satisfaction in creating something real, in building a community, in making a genuine difference in people's lives. One evening, after a particularly successful game launch, I found myself sitting on my back porch. Winston was sleeping at my feet. The Texas sunset was painting the sky in colors no filter could enhance, and I was reading emails from players about how our game had touched their lives. That's when it hit me. I had found my own version of inner peace, and I didn't need to post about it to make it real. Life is a funny way of coming full circle. 3 years after the divorce, I was at the Austin Gaming Convention, not as an attendee but as a keynote speaker. Our latest game had just won Game of the Year, and I was there to talk about storytelling in indie games. After my speech, I decided to grab a coffee from the Convention Center cafe. That's when I saw her. Sarah was standing in line, looking different from her perfectly curated Instagram photos. She was still beautiful, but there was something less polished about her appearance, something more real. She noticed me before I could decide whether to stay or leave. Jake. Her voice was softer than I remembered, missing that forced spiritual guru tone she'd adopted during our last year together. Hey, Sarah. I managed a genuine smile, surprising myself. Didn't expect to see you here. She shifted uncomfortably. I'm doing some wellness consulting for a gaming company. They want to add meditation features to their app. A pause. Kind of like what you suggested back then. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I saw your speech, she continued. The game looks amazing. You've really done well for yourself. I noticed she was clutching her phone, but it wasn't raised to capture the moment for social media. Progress, I supposed. Thanks, I replied. How have you been? She attempted her old confident smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Oh, transitioning. The wellness industry is changing. I'm thinking of going back to actual yoga teaching. Something more real. The conversation felt surreal. Here was the woman who once told me she could replace me easily, looking almost vulnerable. She kept glancing at me, then away, as if trying to reconcile the successful man in front of her with the husband she'd dismissed. I heard about the studio's success, she said. The gaming magazines are calling you a visionary. She laughed softly. Guess you didn't need my wellness brand collaboration after all. I just needed to be myself. I replied simply. A notification pinged on her phone. She glanced at it, then back at me. Would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime? Catch up properly. 3 years ago, that invitation would have sent my heart racing. Now, it just brought a sense of calm clarity. I don't think that's a good idea, Sarah. I kept my voice kind but firm. But I wish you well with your teaching. The real Sarah was always best when she was helping others find their path. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. We both knew this wasn't a romantic reunion story. It was just a moment of closure we hadn't known we needed. As I walked away, coffee in hand, I heard her call out softly, "You look happy, Jake." I turned back briefly. I am. After that chance meeting at the convention, I spent the evening in my home office, Winston sleeping at my feet, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The studio was thriving. We had just announced our next major project, a game about rediscovering yourself after loss. The irony wasn't lost on me that my own life experience had become the inspiration for our most anticipated release yet. The gaming community had embraced our studio's philosophy of creating meaningful experiences over chasing trends. We'd grown to a team of 30 passionate developers, each bringing their own unique perspective to our projects. The little indie studio that started in my garage was now being mentioned alongside industry giants, not because we tried to copy them, but because we stayed true to our vision. Looking at my phone, I thought about Sarah's invitation for coffee. Part of me was curious about her story, how she went from wellness influencer to someone considering a return to authentic yoga teaching. But I realized that wasn't my story to be part of anymore. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to let them find their own path. So I sent one final message. I hope you find what you're looking for. You were always at your best when you were genuine. Then I deleted her number. That night, I worked late on our new game's narrative. There's a scene where the main character has to choose between chasing an illusion or embracing reality. As I wrote the dialogue, I understood that this wasn't just game storytelling. It was life wisdom I'd learned the hard way. Life moved forward. The studio continued to grow, but we never lost our indie spirit. I started a mentorship program for aspiring game developers, sharing not just technical knowledge but life lessons too. Watching these young creators develop their authentic voices became one of my greatest joys. Winston and I still took our morning hikes, watching the Austin sunrise without feeling the need to document it. I dated occasionally, but I wasn't in a rush. When you learn to be content with who you are, you stop trying to fill voids with relationships. The gaming industry changed, as it always does. New trends came and went: virtual reality, augmented reality, AI-driven narratives. But our studio stayed true to its core mission, creating games that meant something. We adopted new technologies when they served the story, not because they were trendy. The man who once measured his worth through his wife's social media approval was gone. In his place was someone who understood that real success comes from being authentic, from creating something meaningful, from touching lives in a genuine way. They say the best revenge is living well, but I've learned it's not about revenge at all. It's about finding your truth, and having the courage to live it. Sometimes I think about that last conversation with Sarah at the convention. There was no anger, no resentment, just two people who had grown in different directions. And that's okay. Not every story needs a dramatic ending or a perfect resolution. As I write this, my team is putting the finishing touches on our new game. Early reviews are calling it our most honest work yet. Tomorrow, I'll wake up, take Winston for our morning walk, and continue building something real. Because that's what life is about. Not curating a perfect image, but creating something genuine, something that matters.